Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to the Asia InsurTech Podcast. We are joined today by Aneesh Chaudhry, the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Sun Life Asia. Thank you so much for coming to the show. Before we get to the main part of this, let's give our listeners a little bit of your background for some context, please.
Thank you, Michael, for having me. So I look after the initiatives on AI, data, and analytics at Sun Life Asia, based out of Hong Kong. 25 years of experience, last 10 to 12 of them across consumer goods, retail, and insurance, around the same space of monetizing and driving value from data and AI.
Awesome. I cannot wait to have this conversation. I've been having so many really interesting and differentiated conversations about AI. And let's start with the foundational tech platforms. Are you saying that the legacy systems that sit inside there are not optimized to be able to then either get accessed by the tools, whether they're large language models or whatever other AI tools there are, to then be able to leverage whatever data is inside of them so you can actually do real things with them? And that until those are not digitally transformed, then the real power of artificial intelligence to give better outcomes is not going to happen until that happens. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think in part, yes. Though I must say over the last 4-5 years, including my experience in Sun Life over the last 3.5 years, a lot of work has happened to decouple the complexity of the tech landscape from the digital landscape, which is advisor facing or client facing. So I think we are, as an industry, well ahead on the journey. I think the opportunity comes when you look at an end-to-end process. Think of, let's say, a new business underwriter. If that individual has to be empowered by Gen AI, as an example, or some of the newer tech, it has to be reimagining of the process that for me as a new business underwriter is. And if it touches multiple systems, unfortunately, that's where some of the drops happen.
So let me share a story with you. And it's a little bit of an old story time-wise, but I think functionality-wise, I think it mirrors exactly what you're talking about. When I joined Goldman Sachs, and this was a while ago now, we were operating our portfolio trading business on some really old mainframe technology. And we were also operating our position keeping system on that technology. And it made it very difficult to do anything modern. And when we switched everything over to all the new modern technologies, not only was our trading faster, our customer service better, and our trading better, but I will say this, that the transition from the old system to the new system was really scary because at least we knew it worked, right? And I kind of look at the position keeping system of an investment bank or of a trading desk kind of like the policy admin system of an insurance company, whereas it may not be perfect, but boy, it's been working for a while. And transitioning it to a new system, even if it's some fancy, new technology, it's like, it still has to work. Is there some kind of fear in that kind of digital transformation as well? Because we were scared.
Yeah, I think more than a fear, it's a lot of caution. Because what we have inside is, of course, data which goes back many decades because some of the policies are live. And a lot of our customers are customers for decades. They're rarely for a few months or a year, being a life insurer. So I think there's a lot of caution for sure. But I also feel there's an element of not just one system. There are many systems that have originated and they work well together. So when you want to transform, you have to transform the whole landscape. And that takes a fair bit of road mapping and architecture. Now, I also come from consumer goods and retail, where there was the whole era of ERP that happened. And that kind of ERP era, or the enterprise resource planning era, has bypassed insurance industry in general. And at that point, I thought that was table stakes. But boy, how that unlocks speed for transformation. You can feel it in insurance now.
Yeah, fair enough. And I talk to a lot of companies, and a lot of companies are going through the same thing and having similar conversations. Can we talk about artificial intelligence kind of from a higher level? What are some of the biggest impactful innovations you've seen across other industries in the past? And how are they influencing the insurance sector specifically? So stuff you've seen elsewhere and you think either A, this is already being implemented, or it should be being implemented over here.
Yeah. I think if I look around our peers in Asia in particular, and that's kind of where my experience is, a lot of good work in insurance has happened on productivity, and a lot of interesting work is happening on the underwriting space. And that's something that Sun Life is also doing in Asia. And very focused on, can I automate stuff? And can I take away some of the routine repetitive stuff to enhance employee experience, especially in the new business onboarding and the underwriting space. And I wouldn't get into too much details, but it's the typical things of OCR, document handling, robotics process automation. And that's in many ways, I would say, table stakes in the industry here. Some of the interesting stuff that's happening is a little bit more on the client side. And that's where the life insurance industry in particular has been trying many things, successful in some, less successful in others. If you look at some of the work that's happening on integrating with the health ecosystem, where we have kind of leaning into saying, we all want the shared outcomes, we want a healthy client, but then how do we offer it through a protection offering versus a little bit of an incentive to live healthier lives, number of steps, and so on and so forth. More closer to home in terms of Sun Life, there is some very interesting work we did around the client engagement on servicing, integration with Alexa, building Alexa skills, and trying to be where our clients are in terms of how they want to experience life. And can I be present there? And the Alexa skill is a great example of doing that.
So can I ask you this? Because you mentioned earlier clients. This is the second or third time you've mentioned client engagement. And, one of the things you said was it's not a daily exercise the same way it might be for a bank, right? Like at some level, I pay for stuff every day. I'm not really interfacing with my bank per se. I'm not talking to anybody there. But yeah, I'm using their technology. Do you think there is a way, because you just talked about integrating with the health ecosystem, I think about my health every day. I wear an Apple Watch. I go to the gym. I do all this stuff. Is there a way to create more engagement, even with a life policy, right? Because again, I want to extend my life. I want to make my life better. At some level, my health is related to how good my life is. And if that's the case, if you can get more engaged, how would you do that? And then does AI or emerging tech play a role in that too?
Absolutely. Look, one of the areas that Philippines, which is one of our big markets, is working on is the whole area of financial literacy. Now, if I can just step back, Sun Life's purpose is to help clients achieve lifetime financial security and live healthier lives. So it's not only about the protection product, it's not only about the offerings that we have, but it also kind of extends into financial literacy and helping our clients understand what it means. And Philippines is a great example where we're doing some amazing work. Now, historically, we've done work in the more traditional way in terms of doing financial literacy campaigns and so on and so forth. More recently, we are exploring and piloting an approach where financial literacy is gamified and it is embedded in the way the clients behave and want to operate. Now, in the past, this has been tried. More recently with Gen AI, I'm a lot more optimistic that we can do it at scale to provide that personalized kind of coaching, so to speak. And that's some of the work that we are working on and the team is working on in Asia.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about that? I've had so much experience with startups that are building gamified platforms specifically to help life insurance companies stay engaged with their existing customers, but also get them new customers, right? So essentially what these companies do is they sit in between the life company and other large companies, right? Because the best way to get to scale is to have a life company give life policies. And as you said, to have, to serve financial literacy to them at scale because they're at a company that you're dealing with, right? Not just on an individual by individual basis. And they create a whole bunch of gamified scenarios where they see unbelievable engagement. So I'm just curious, how is it something you're developing internally only, or is it you're getting help externally, or a little bit of a mix of both?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both for now. So one of the insights we've got while doing it over the last 6 odd months is we also have deep insights into our clients segmentation wise. In Philippines, I have a range of clients. I've got clients who are nearing retirement, very different needs, very different perspective. I've got clients who are in the mid-20s. And what we have found was many off-the-shelf solutions need that little bit of a fine-tuning, so to speak, to make it really relevant to me as an individual. And I think that's where we are trying to bridge the gap, not trying to reinvent the underlying solution, but can I bring in the insight about my client needs, the client's life stage, and help tune the systems. Now, we might, in the short term, build something bespoke in-house, but my own belief is long-term, we will have to partner. We will have to have a solution which can scale, because at the end of the day, we're not a product development company as far as tech goes.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the main reasons. So this is the big thing that's changed, I think, over the 5 or 6 years that we've been doing this show, is that large companies like yours are very focused on building the best stuff for them, but then going externally and saying, this startup is not trying to disrupt my business. It's trying to enable my business. And they're looking at it the same way. Again, if you talk to some of these startups 6 or 7 years ago, they're like, we're going to destroy the incumbents. And now they're like, oh, actually, maybe we should just help them. It feels like a better strategy, no?
No, absolutely. And I think one of the other shifts that's happened in Sun Life over the last 3-4 years, in Asia in particular, is our increased focus on client outcomes. And that is also helping us as we navigate how we think about these things. And when I say that, I don't just mean it as a corporate speak. Genuinely, our conversations are, what is the outcome we want to drive for the client? And then what are the 3 things that we can do? And what could be a couple of things an ecosystem could do if we were to be able to, in a position to create that for the client?
So what are they?
No, so in many cases, this is a great example of financial literacy. Look, I cannot do this independent of some of the work and products that a bank offers or a mutual fund offers. Now, in other markets, we are an asset management and a life and a wealth company, so we have the full portfolio. Right. In Asia, we are predominantly a life insurer, and working closely with ecosystem partners make a lot of sense. Let me give you an example of one of our companies where Bowtie, which is one of the first digital insurers in Hong Kong.
In Hong Kong, yeah.
Amazing guys. And the work they are doing with JP Health is a great example of creating an ecosystem where they're going to bring in the best of both, keeping the client at the center of the conversation.
Can I ask you this? Like, how do you know? It's really a 2-parter, I guess. How do you know who should be focused on to make them more financially literate? And then how can you tell if you've succeeded, do you know what I mean, in making somebody financially literate, so that you don't have unlimited resources. None of us do. And if you're focusing on the wrong people to begin with, if they're like, I already know all this stuff, why are you telling me? Because that's annoying. But on the other hand, if I've learned all these things and now I feel confident, how do you know when to stop? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a fair one. That's a very fair question. Our approach has been, and I referred to that earlier, very segmented. So I don't think we are necessarily in the best position to provide that support to clients, for all the clients in all the markets. So we are being very narrow. We are being very specific in terms of who we want to make this offering to. And it's an offering. The client may or may not like it, may choose to go the other way. So we are being choiceful on what segments in Philippines, similarly what segments in Malaysia. And we do want to do it in a manner that our products and offering are symbiotic to it. So it cannot be an independent conversation on health, for example. If I don't have a health offering, it doesn't flow. So we are being very narrow, Michael, to begin with, to segments that we genuinely can add value. And to your other bigger question on how do we know when we are successful, we hope that it comes through client feedback, but we haven't really found a mathematical way to say, okay, now is the time to stop. But our experience suggests, look, usage is a great feedback. If no one is using your tools or the usage goes off, that's a good indicator something is wrong. And event-based listening, which is our mechanism to hear back from clients, is the other mechanism that we use. And we're hoping clients stay with us, use our tools is a great indication it's working for them.
I hope so. I mean, I knew there was no real answer to that question, right? But I'm just curious, like the way you're thinking about it, because it informs, I think, a bunch of other stuff that you do. Can we, if you don't mind, can we back up a little bit? You talked about how you're using artificial intelligence and even Gen AI to kind of make the internal services and stuff better. Can you give maybe a couple of examples of where the process was like this and now it's like this and it's better because we've employed some of this stuff? And can I make another point too, if you don't mind? There's way less risk, I think, and I think this is one of the points you were trying to make earlier, of employing artificial intelligence internally before you make it customer facing, right? Because if it makes an error, it does something wrong, the only thing it impacts is somebody internally. And while that's not great, it's not fatal, right? But if you do it externally, if a customer loses faith in you, well, then they're like, oh, if that's broken, then what else isn't? Do you know what I mean? So I love this idea of, it's almost like internal testing to get it right for external. But anyway, do you have any examples of where it's been employed and where it's worked?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe if I can give a bigger picture to begin with. Look, the whole Gen AI journey in Sun Life started about 18 to 20 months back. We were one of the first insurers globally to almost commit saying, look, this is important, let's invest. And we did that globally. And as of today, we have about 50 plus use cases in the pipeline in various stages of development. We've got about 10 odd use cases which are deployed, which means in the hand of the users, they are part of our business. And in addition to that, we also kind of deployed our own version of our internal Gen AI tool called Sun Life Asks, which we opened up to all our 65,000 employees. And that's kind of also is another way of creating value where everyone can use it from a perspective of being more efficient in what I do. It's not the end to big process, but I do. And we've got about 1 million queries there already.
So what is that access? Is that access just internal data and internal information? So if I'm like, I don't know how that thing works, I can ask I can chat with Sun Life Asks, and it's only limited to the stuff that's internal, which is good, right? Because that's all I really want to know about. Is that what that does?
So it is. At very fundamental level, we've taken one of the foundational models on one of our partners, AWS Bedrock, and kind of brought it in-house in a way. And then we've fed, to your point, internal documentation. A great example is Iris, which is kind of a bot which helps us me as an end user, engage with an IT guy saying, look, I have this problem. It's on some of our HR policies. That's also another knowledge base that's been loaded saying, look, how many leave holidays do I have? Or if I'm not well, who should I do? So all that knowledge has been added on to the foundational model. And to your point, continuously will get evolved, and with more and more knowledge, makes it easy for me to consume policies which are already there on a SharePoint somewhere. But here I get results like this.
Yeah.
But it also allows...
Sorry, I was just going to say, I love this because this is a theory that I had a couple of years ago, whereas instead of using the large, gigantic foundational models and all the external data, it's just going to be just your data internally. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, absolutely. Look, end of the day, as you rightly said, it's tailored to what I need to do. I, as an individual in Sun Life, what is important for me? How does it help me to do my job? So some of them is knowledge-based. Some of them is also the traditional functionality of language models. For example, within our comms guys, they are using this to refine some of the press note that goes out. Now, that's not on content. It's more on tone. I just want to make sure it's a consistent corporate tone. And some of the colleagues are using it quite nicely. I have used it to write job descriptions myself. And it's amazing how it gets us to 80% right very quickly. Yeah. So our approach has been human in the loop. I don't think it replaces any of the experts, but it does get me to the first 80% right draft really well. And that's how we positioned it across the enterprise when we do training and comms.
So you segued perfectly for me. You were reading my mind. As a senior manager, right, as the guy or the gals in charge of all of this stuff, you can have a lot of confidence that it is going to be a human in the loop, right? That it's going to get you to 80% really fast, and that we're not going to fire swaths of people to do this. But I think at the junior or lower levels, people are a little bit scared because that's what the news tells them to be. I hate when they do this. And again, someone like I am who's seen multiple cycles of tech coming in, I've honestly never seen people get fired because of technology. I've just seen them use it to just do better work and do more work. Was there a mindset change, or was there a very purposeful decision made internally that says we have to sit down with our people either in small groups or in large groups and say, this is going to help you. It's not going to hurt you. And was there a mindset change that was necessary to be able to do this and accomplish this?
Yeah. No, we've been very thoughtful and deliberate on this point, Michael. Thank you for raising it. Because quite rightly, this is something every time an AI comes to the fore, becomes in the consumer mind, this is a concern. Yeah. So we were very mindful, we were very thoughtful. Very clearly, we've said human in the loop. So we've definitely said, guys, this is not about removing people. This is about driving productivity. So that kind of message has been reinforced many times. Also, I think it helps, Michael, that I'm in a industry, in a region where we are growing. And the way it's being used is ease off. Guys, you've been working 12 hours, 13 hours. Maybe if it takes away 1 hour of your time, that's what it is. So in many cases, it's more as, get your life in order kind of a thing, more than we're going to replace you. And that's how it's been used. And by democratizing it, we're finding some very interesting use cases that people are finding because they are in the hot seat. They kind of have a very different perspective how I can use it rather than someone sitting centrally deciding what's the right use case a Gen AI can be. So that's kind of one big space of value creation. Then, of course, there is the more structured space of value creation, which is in our operations area. But the one that I'm most excited about is the work we are doing for our advisors in the agency channel in particular, where we are build a Gen AI tool for augmentation. So we're really saying, guys, there's a lot of stuff which is not really about talking to clients, finding their needs, offering the right solution, but it's more back-end stuff. Questions about products, questions about underwriting, status. In some cases, for our new advisors, a little bit of a coaching on how to sell, and I've got a objection handling. So what we're doing is we've created the Rookie Advisor Bot, as we call it.
That sounds so great. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's kind of in intensive care is the best way to describe it. It's in the hand of our advisors. We're getting feedback. We're modifying it. We're getting more feedback. That's the phase it is in. And I feel that's one opportunity and that kind of solution pattern, which kind of sets the tone on how we want to use Gen AI as a major enablement more than anything else.
I love this idea of the Rookie Advisory Bot. It's like digital mentoring at scale, with no X to grind, right? Like I can ask the bot anything and there's no X to grind. So I love this. Do you mind if I ask you about, you said you give the AI to everybody, and sometimes you're surprised because the centralized ideas that you have may not actually be the ideas that, like you said, the guys and the gals in the trenches really want to use. They're like, how about this? Are there any like interesting or surprising ideas that have popped up that you can share or that you want to share, even just one or two?
Yeah, sure. So again, one of the most interesting thing on that space came in the whole from a training team. And it's quite interesting one, again, for agents. Look, when agents join the industry or join Sun Life, they go through a certain training. That's, of course, the basic mandatory. But we also do a lot of, if I may say, top-up training where we have an MDRT, an experienced advisor, come in and do TED Talk formats. Give experiences, answer questions, and these are 1.5 hour in-person sessions. And one of the feedback that the training team had was, look, we do the sessions, people love it, but then as they go back, it's very difficult for them to recall. And when they want to kind of revisit it, the hesitation is 1.5 hours of video to find that insight. I'm not going to do it. So the way they used the Sun Life Ask and the platform was to upload that training video and ask question, look, I heard about this. Where in the video is that? And it says, okay, it's at 45 seconds. Now, this is a very interesting use case, and we're going to bring it back to the advisor bot as well, which is really about very practical pain point and Gen AI helping it solve in a simple way.
I always like to ask this question because it's kind of meta. Do you use artificial intelligence internally to learn from how people are using the AI? Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean? So then you can optimize it because you know the questions that people are going to ask, and you can make the answers actually more optimized because it's learning as it's going, and the AI actually does that learning for you.
Yeah, that's such a nice lead into one of the things we are doing this month. So we haven't really matured to do the full thing, I think, which you are suggesting. But what we are doing that is learning from questions that are being asked, but the AI has not been given knowledge of. So I've loaded product knowledge. I've loaded and trained it on underwriting process, on the digital tools. But then someone asked me something which is not loaded. It is giving us indication which is the next knowledge base that we want to go in, because that's where the demand is coming from our advisor base. So we're in that stage, Michael, yet on taking feedback, but it's a fair point. How can we take it to the next level? I'm going to think about that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. How does it affect underwriting? Like, I'm not an underwriter. I've never been an underwriter, but I'm just curious how AI internally affects the underwriting process and the underwriting outcomes actually as well.
Yeah. See, the way we've approached it, so the streamlining of the underwriting principles is a different conversation altogether with our actuarial teams, with our risk team. But what we are focusing on is, can I make the life of an underwriter easy? Can I streamline the underwriting process? So let's give an example. For some of our high net worth clients, there's an and these are really high net worth clients, there's a lot of documentation that comes in, sometimes health related, and sometimes in languages which are not necessarily the English. Now, lots of documentation, all needs to be processed, but then the client also expects response ASAP, because that's what clients want. That's what I as a client would want. And what we are doing with AI and Gen AI more recently is easing off the work what an underwriter would do physically in sequence and steps, and kind of accelerating that. The decision of the underwriting still remains with the underwriter, but facilitating the analysis, the summarization, the categorization of information needed is something that Gen AI is doing today and doing reasonably well.
Does it change the way you look at the people you hire for specific roles, right? Again, we talked about humans in the loop. We're going to need people to do all these jobs, but do we need different types of junior people to come in? When we think about hiring, are we hiring a different guy and gal than we might have been hiring before because of a new skill set that they need or a new mindset that they need or something else that's different? Yeah.
I've been thinking about this, Michael, and I think we are a bit early in the journey to have a definitive view on this, but you're spot on. As we evolve this, as we learn more on what the tools can do, cannot do, and in many ways reimagine how we do some of our processes, there would be an element of upskilling and a different mix of people. But Michael, too early in the journey yet to have a strong view on that.
Fair enough. Look, you said you came from consumer products and outside the insurance industry. And I think if I remember correctly, you said you joined Sun Life a mere 3 years ago. Yeah. Right? So there's got to be part of your brain that's still kind of looking out the side of your eye going, what are those guys doing now that maybe we're not doing? Do you know what I mean? Because you understand their businesses as well. Are there things that are happening outside of insurance today that you've seen over the past 3 years where you think we're going to have to get to this too?
Yeah. So I think some of the areas that's on my radar and some work is happening, more will happen this year as well, is leverage of external data. I think if I think retail, if I think consumer goods, there's a lot of data outside which defines the ecosystem. Think of it as non-personal data around census, around traffic data, and then also some of the more public data that's available on social media and beyond. I think that's something I would like to do more of in my portfolio. We're doing some interesting work on deriving affluence of potential leads and clients based on where they live, because the residence has a certain value, or value is associated with affluence. But I think leveraging external data is something that I am quite conscious that there's an opportunity to tap as we go forward.
Yeah, I mean, does that mean looking at where people are buying houses or which condos are going up and stuff like that, and just seeing what types of people are buying them and thinking, if you've bought this and you don't have a life policy, you're probably going to need one because if, for all the protection reasons, but also again, look, you said this earlier. The idea is we're not just a life insurance company per se, right? We're trying to provide financial wellness to people. And I think that's part of what life insurance does, and particularly with the products that are peripherally around it as well. But is that the type of alternative data that you're evaluating maybe?
I think in part, look, end of the day, insurance penetration in Asia in general is quite low. And then therefore there is an element of also, if I may say, educating on what is the role insurance can play in the overall financial plan. And what better time than to have that conversation when your life stage is demanding it. So if there is a signal which tells me, look, you've just kind of had a family, you've started a family, great opportunity to talk about endowment plans. So I think it's a lot more of various forms of external data, including our partnerships with banks, where we have a bank assurance partnership, to find the right time to engage with clients with relevant conversations.
So you've just triggered something in my brain, right? So bank assurance obviously has been the traditional way that insurance has been sold for decades, if not centuries. I wouldn't say centuries, but for decades for sure, right? Because a banking customer gives a lot of data, they just have a relationship, and it's easy to sell them another financial services product. They trust their bank, they'll trust their insurer. Are there other types of digital platforms that you think give opportunities to mine for customers that maybe weren't there before? And because of people's financial activity on those platforms, maybe hints into, again, this is a different kind of alternative data, but give hints into the types of things you would like to know for them to become more active in the life insurance market.
Yeah. No, for sure. No, we at Sun Life, we haven't worked on this in a big way, but I am aware that in some of our markets, India in particular, has some of these platforms where it provides strong signal, which can help to define very curated insurance offerings. But Michael, I haven't had the opportunity to work on them so far.
Fair enough. Okay. One more thing, and then I'll let you go. Look out 3 years, 7 years. Talk to me about what the ecosystem looks like and what the role of artificial intelligence is going to be playing. What do you think you're going to see out there? And again, the road could be windy and curvy and stuff like that, but what direction do you think it's going in?
And I think I'm going to link it back to one of the conversations we had earlier in the call around the tech legacy landscape and how it kind of comes in the way of transformation. Look, if I look forward and I think about some of the work that's emerging on agentic AI in particular, I do think that's a huge opportunity to accelerate some of that complex and difficult digital transformation that insurers are handling and dealing with. And that's something that is kind of excites me and worries me at the same time because the opportunity is huge. But that's definitely one area, Michael, where I think us as an industry are going to invest in. And I do think that's going to help us collectively to overcome this long running, almost the platform problem to solve. And that's absolutely one. So, Michael, that's a great question. I think as I look forward, one of the big areas of interest and potential is agentic AI. I think it has the capacity and the capability to overcome some of the traditional challenges of modernizing the tech stack at speed. And I think that that's one area that we're going to start focusing on going forward. And it's going to be something that whole industry is going to benefit from. That's one of my personal predictions, so to speak. And I think along with that, some of the work that we said about working with ecosystems, I do feel insurers are going to get closer and closer to the various ecosystems. And that's going to be great for us. That's going to be importantly great for our clients as well.
I agree. The agentic AI stuff is something that I'm really looking forward to as it continues to develop. I was talking to somebody this morning about, it's weird to call these legacy platforms, but things like if this, then that, right? IFFT, I can't remember what it was called. And then Zapier, where you could like automate some things. It almost seems quaint now, right? Because agentic AI can take some of these things and just build way better products and processes around it. I'm curious to see where this goes as well. Anyway, I really want to thank you, Aneesh Chaudhry, Chief Data and Analytics Officer, Sun Life Asia. This was great. You're welcome back on the show anytime you want to come back. Anytime something new happens, please let us know. We're happy to have you on. Thank you again for doing this.
Thank you, Michael. It was a pleasure.